Good morning guys. We're back at it again with another video. We're gonna do a brief overview of the layout for the garage here, or the steel building, whatever you wanna call it, aircraft hangar. I'm gonna talk about all the costs involved with building this, as well as, are we gonna be doing rainwater harvesting? Are we gonna be doing solar on here? As well as our future house plans. So let's start off with the cost of the building. So to do all the site prep work, which included putting down about 3 or 4 inches of AB mix, as well as all the hourly work that Joe did from Texas Rocking Canyon with his backhoe, that was about $7,000 to do all that, just so that we could get to a point where we could actually pour a concrete slab out here. So the slab was done by a local contractor, and then the concrete finishers, they're actually from Tucson. And they did a really good job on this slab. Like, I've gotten a couple compliments on it already, just with how smooth and how good it looks. So they did a great job on it. So the entire slab cost $21,000 to have done. So this is a VersaTube building. It's 85 feet long, 45 feet wide with a 10-foot lean on. So the entire square footage, if you include the lean on, is just over 4,600 square feet. Just inside of here, I think it's just under 4,000 or something like that. Also important to note that the interior height of the building is 16 feet. So at the time that I purchased this, it was $62,000. Steel prices fluctuate quite a bit. So as the price of steel goes up, a company like VersaTube also has to increase their price. And at this time last year, that was the price of it. And also did work with VersaTube on obviously, showcasing the entire garage build on YouTube. So they gave me a small discount on that $62,000. And for any companies that I ever work with in the future, I always do my best to do due diligence and research them. And if I'm willing to actually pay the price for that product, then I'm also willing to work with them because it also kind of helps us a bit with saving a few dollars. Overall, the construction of the building went together quite smoothly. The issues that I've had with it, for the most part, were my own fault. Like not measuring, I thought when I just slammed the base rails together, I thought that it was 4 feet on center, but I just didn't fully read the instructions. So I had to go redo the base rails so that we had our 4 foot on center for all the steel studs going up. So that was my fuck up on that. Other than that, the only other issues that we've had, there was one piece of base rail that I believe when you do a custom building with VersaTube, I believe it's all computer generated. So it actually missed one of the studs going up, and I had the studs, but I didn't have the base rail piece that it slides over. And so I was just really confused, and what I've noticed working with them is that their customer service is really good. So they're able to replace a piece or get me the right piece within a few days, and their customer service is really good. So I think for the most part in the Facebook chat window, I've mainly been talking to Jackie, and anytime I had a question about how things go together or something was just really confusing to me, like there are certain pieces that go at the bottom of these studs here, and I had them and I'm like, I have no idea where these go. So they're very responsive. I would usually have a response within 5 or 10 minutes, which is really good because sometimes you need a really quick response if you're in the middle of doing something. So kudos to them. So their best way of getting their support is through their chat window on their Facebook page. I also like the building style. Instead of using like the big red steel beams and stuff, is that they're using a more standard size, like 2x4 studding essentially, except it's steel and it's pretty effing thick and it's really strong. I like that because it'll make it a lot easier in the future if we ever want to stud out a wall or finish a wall, that we can easily do that. All right, now let's go over the floor plan for it. So our future house is gonna go right down in this area right here. So our first point of entrance into the garage is gonna be through this main door here. So we walk in, vehicle number 1 will be right here. Vehicle number 2, at some point in the future, will be right here. Tractor storage is gonna be through this third garage door. So I'll have space to put all of our implements. And then I framed out essentially like a double door here. They're gonna have to be custom doors anyways. So I'm gonna do something kind of cool with this here. Maybe those doors that go back and forth. Like if you're going in a grocery store and they've got those doors that go like that. And then coming outside here, I wanted obviously good access to be able to bring things in and out of this area. So this is going to be my shop area. So we're going to do lots of woodworking, metalworking, and this will be my main entrance coming into this side of the building. So then if we come to the back here, what this door is for. So all my material storage for storing, mainly for storing steel and just other things that I just don't really necessarily need inside. Wood will probably be stored inside. Is that I'll just build some racks up here and then be able to store everything outside. So then coming through this back door here, I've got my tractor here right now. But essentially what we're going to be doing with the lean on here is basically dividing this space in half and then covering the outside and each end here with clear polycarbonate. So we're essentially going to turn this into a greenhouse. So it's going to be a really nice greenhouse space, and Hannah's going to be really happy about that. So my buddy Jake, who you'll see in a future video, he helped with this wall here. He's an architect, so he's wondering, why is this building so freaking tall? So the reason why it's so tall is across this back wall, essentially starting from right about here, all the way across to this wall, is that there's going to essentially be a second level. So it's going to be like a mezzanine level. So it's going to extend off the wall right to about here or so. So it's about 14 feet. So the second floor is essentially going to be 14 feet out, and then it's 60 feet and 6 inches from that wall there, all the way to there. Then we'll have a stairway going up somewhere around here, and then you can walk up to the second floor. On this portion of the second floor, there's going to be like a gym area. So Hannah wants to get some equipment. I want to get some equipment as well. And then on this other side here, it's going to be totally enclosed, and it's going to be like a man cave area slash podcast area slash my office. So it'd essentially be like a fully finished room with like couches, a desk, and I want to put an electric guitar up there so I can learn how to play, as well as some other instruments. So we're going to get that going on up here. And then underneath the mezzanine, there's going to be storage and just kind of more random stuff like that. But there's lots of things that Hannah and I both want to be able to do. Hannah really wants to get into pottery and starting to make, you know, like cups and bowls and plates and all that kind of cool stuff. I want to do more, you know, woodworking and metalworking and even some sewing projects as well. So the space is definitely going to get filled up, and we're going to be using this for a lot of different purposes. So that's one reason why it's so big, and I understand why people are confused. Like, why do you need something so big? Not only is it just like an investment in our property, but it's also an investment in our businesses. So having that space and being able to do things inside of here is going to be really, really useful and really awesome. So definitely with a roof catchment surface of this size, we're going to be doing rainwater harvesting. Mainly the water that is going to be collected off this building is primarily just going to be used for the future house that we're going to build, like I mentioned, just right over there. So based on the roof catchment surface, we should be able to collect at least 30,000 gallons of water per year, probably a little bit more. So we're going to have some gutters installed on either side of the building, have some downspouts. Then I'll be able to run some 4-inch pipe going to 2 tanks that are just going to be off this end. So there's a reason why the pad extends about another 25 feet past the building, so that we'll have space for rainwater tanks. So I'm looking at some 12,000. That wind's a little bit crazy. So the pad extends beyond the building so that we can put some big water tanks in there. So there's some that I'm looking at that are 12,000 gallons. So I think 2 of them. So for a total capacity of 24,000 gallons, I think that should be sufficient for our water use. So the next question that I see a lot, is there gonna be solar on this garage? And yes, there is, but we're gonna do things in a slightly different way than we did with the tiny house. So the tiny house solar system is designed only for the tiny house. So we can't just easily, you know, run extra power into here or anything like that. Basically the size of the inverter and the size of the system is designed specifically for the tiny house. So based on some rough calculations of doing solar, completely off-grid solar that would go on this garage and then also feed the other house, we're looking in the neighborhood of at least 30 to 40 and probably closer to $50,000. So that is a huge amount of cash investment just to get electricity going on in here. And right at this time, it doesn't make sense to do a fully off-grid system, especially for some of the power loads that are going to be going on in here. So what Hannah and I have talked about is doing a grid-tied solar system. So one of my good buddies, he works for a company called Sunrun. So they would be comparable to Tesla's Solar City. So they can actually come in and install a grid-tied system for us, and it'll be $0 to install the grid-tied system, and it's only going to cost about $10,000, probably a little bit less than that, to bring power in from the grid. There are certainly some pros and some cons to doing a grid-tied system. So if you have easy access to shore power or to the grid, you can get a grid-tied system for $0. So the companies, either Sunrun, Tesla Solar City, for the most part, they will install it for $0 down. They essentially become your power company at that point. So what's cool about Sunrun, my buddy Memphis works for them, and they'll actually install a battery backup as well as, obviously the inverter, the panels, and all that kind of jazz. So what's cool about doing a grid-tied system with battery backup is that it also makes you blackout proof. So if the grid power were to ever go down for whatever reason, either it's just a blackout or the apocalypse is happening and the grid power is down, we're still going to have electricity, especially going when the sun goes down and throughout the evening. So instead of being able to say that we're 100% off grid in terms of our electricity, we might only be 80 or 90% running on solar. So like I've said, you can essentially power pretty well most things with off-grid solar. It's just how much money do you want to spend? And right at this time, spending $40,000, $50,000 on a solar system, it's a lot of money to be able to put some cash out for, especially when I can get grid power brought in for a fraction of that price, and then also get a grid-tied system installed as well that we can even buy out at some point in the future. And this also runs into our future house building plans. So this structure, this garage, barn, aircraft hangar, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be the last major building that I construct in terms of its actual size. It's just gotten to a point where I don't find a lot of joy or value out of doing this type of stuff. And like I mentioned on my video, I think it's titled I wanted to quit. It's like I have to learn to be able to delegate certain projects in the future. I just know from how long the tiny house took me to build, that took me 6 months to build, and that's only 200 square feet. So building a full-size home, our home size has also gotten significantly bigger from when we originally moved out here and what we originally had planned. So we want to have children. Children are going to need bedrooms, are going to need play spaces as well. The house size goes from being under 1,000 square feet to something significantly larger. And doing a building style like rammed earth or straw bale, cob, earth bag, while those can be very inexpensive ways of building a house, right now it is just an enormous time investment. So the money that you save in terms of materials, you make up for it in labor. And I really love the idea of being able to build my own house, and it's not something that I can't do. I certainly could do it, but I also have to think, do I actually want to do it? And from doing this building, from doing the tiny house, I'm just it's just not something that I'm passionate about doing. It's not something that I really want to do. There's so many different other hobbies and things that I want to get into that I've never even had the space to do, which now, since this garage is essentially done, I can actually start working towards doing that type of stuff. So we're gonna have a local contractor. His name is Brad. He's come very highly recommended to us and is well known throughout the area for building really awesome custom homes. So we're gonna have him do a home for us. And that takes a huge amount of stress off of me, being like, I've got to build a freaking goddamn home, and I've got to do it in a somewhat timely manner. And for me and Hannah, it definitely is a better choice for us. And I was really excited to be able to build my own house, but at the end of the day, if my heart isn't into it and I just really don't want to do it, then there's no point in really drudging through it and being miserable and wishing that I hadn't started it myself. One other pro of going with a contractor and builder is that the house is going to be fully permitted and inspected. So that isn't really super important to me, but the benefit of that is if, Hannah and I are still pretty young, we're 32 years old, so it's hard to exactly forecast the future and exactly where we're gonna be and what we're gonna be doing for the rest of our life. So if we do an earth style building with the opt-out and the inside isn't essentially inspected, and it is permitted, but it's not inspected. Also, typically, if you're selling or buying a house, like that house should have insurance, so getting insurance on a house like that would be quite difficult. So the best choice for us right now, I know it may disappoint some of you, and I apologize for that, but for my own sanity and for my own happiness, I just don't really want to build a full-size house at this point right now. The house is still going to take into account all the things that I've talked about in terms of solar, passive, and heating. So the orientation of the house is going to be obviously east and west. We're going to be obviously harvesting any of the water off the roof. We're going to be doing rainwater harvesting with this house as well. So a lot of the principles that we've learned from the tiny house on how to do them, we're obviously going to implement them into the main house. So we're still going to be technically 100% off-grid with water, so we're not going to do a well or anything like that. Unless we wanted to grow like an orchard of fruit trees, and maybe we'd do a well at that point. But just for what we need for gardening and obviously just like our daily use, then we're still going to be 100% on rainwater, because I think it's far superior than it is to well water. So something that is cool about doing a grid-tied system that might be much more applicable to your dreams and your circumstances, you might have easy access to shore power, but also investing, maybe it's like $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 in an off-grid solar system might not necessarily be within your budget when you can get cheap shore power and maybe get a grid-tied system installed for $0. So that's something else to consider, and I'll be documenting the entire process of bringing the grid power in from the lines there, as well as the grid-tied solar system and that entire process as well. So it might be much more actually beneficial and useful for you as well. Awesome, guys. I think I answered pretty well most of the common questions that I see in the comment box. And personally, a lot of the things that I'm much more passionate about, things that I actually really want to do, and I finally in my life actually have the space to do it, is doing more like maker-type projects, so like Jimmy DiResta, April Wilkerson, people like that. And then also even doing workshops in here as well. So kind of like how Jimmy DiResta does that. So I would connect with some of the local woodworkers or metal workers and do workshops in here, which I think would be pretty badass to be able to do, meet a lot of people, learn some pretty cool skills all in one. Awesome, guys. I hope the information in this video sheds some light on exactly what this building is for. It is it's a pretty big deal for us to have so much space. I know a lot of people were like, I thought you were like a minimalist, and it's like, I've been living such a minimal life for pretty well the past 5 or 6 years of my life, essentially living on my bicycle for most of that, living on essentially what would fit in 2 pannier bags on my bike, and then, upgrading to the tiny house. The tiny house was like a big upgrade in terms of like space. Living in very small spaces for such a long time, not having a lot of stuff, and being able to get to a point in my life where I can actually do some of the things that I've been thinking and dreaming about since, since I was like a little kid. Like a lot of these, like I remember my first cool project that I ever did when I was a kid. I think I was 15 or 16 years old, is I took a chainsaw, I cut the motor out of it essentially, attached it to the back of a kid's scooter, and made my own motorized scooter. So I've done really cool stuff like that since I was a kid, and I just can't wait to get started to doing stuff like that and showcasing that on this channel, and just trying to inspire and help people to be a little bit more independent and being able to do things themselves. I think it's fantastic. Awesome, guys. I hope this video helped shed some light on essentially what's going to be happening in the near future, and more obviously in the long-term future as well, and gives you an idea of what this building is for. I'm so excited for what's to come. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon.